So you're looking for a sponsor, or you've got one and you don't know what to do next. How can you incorporate sponsorship into your YouTube videos to make sure that you are representing them well enough and that you're cutting a good enough deal so that they can be on your platform? Well, look no further, because today I'm going to show you all of the tips and tricks that you can deploy to make sure that you are baking in sponsorship well enough into your show to get a deal in the first place or to do them justice. So you've done the hard bit, you've made a podcast show, and now you're looking for sponsors to sponsor you to make the show. How do we make that happen? And how do we combine what you've already made with what they want so that you can represent them properly? First of all, I think the most important thing is that you and the sponsor are aligned in some way. So do go back and look at my last two videos where I talk about metrics and demographics and all of that stuff so that you can align your podcast's audience with the audience of the sponsor. This should make it so that your promotion and your sales pitch to the audience doesn't come across as too forced or too contradicting to your podcast's vibe. So for example, if we were to sell podcasting stuff like microphone stands and microphones, that's quite a natural thing to do. Whereas if we start selling beauty and hair products, that is a misalignment there. So just make sure that before you go into this, that your podcast and your mission aligns with the mission of the sponsor. Don't just go into it because you're getting money. It has to be aligned in some way. Otherwise, it will come across as forced. So the most basic thing that you can do to represent your sponsor is to include something in the description of your show. So say you've got an affiliate link where, they go and they buy something, and then if they buy something, you get a cut of that selling price, or you get a flat rate, whatever that might be. However it's working, one way to represent it is to put a link in the description that they can click to then go onto their page. Obviously, in this situation, it's really important that you point out that there is a link in the description to click, so it will coincide with you saying something in the video to point them down there so that they can click the link themselves. If your YouTube channel is at a point where it can do this feature, you can also include little pop-out banners or cards at the top of the video that point people to the link that you have in the description so that they can click along to that through the video itself as well. So that's quite a basic one, and it's one that lots of people do, just have an affiliate link in the description. But remember, all of these things that I'm about to tell you can be used in the negotiation process with a potential sponsor. Remember, you are the expert here, and after listening to me, you will know what you can include in these videos to entice sponsors to want to sponsor you more. So use this as your secret weapon to negotiate a price or whatever it might be so that you can get the best deal with your sponsor. So another thing that you might want to do is to include the company's logo somewhere. Now, one way to do this would be to include it at the beginning of the podcast. So, when, you watch a TV show and it's sponsored by like a car brand or something, and at the beginning of the show, it comes up with their logo and it says, this video is sponsored by this company. You could do something very similar to that. Just put a logo at the start and say that your show is sponsored by this brand. That's a very kind of clean way to do it. It doesn't take very long, and it kind of just flashes up for a second there. You could go one step further than that and have a logo in the background, perhaps. So instead of the Podcaster's Podcast logo, maybe I have another brand on there as well. So it's permanently on the screen at all times or from certain angles. You could go another step further and edit the logo onto the screen somewhere, maybe in the corners or something like that, so that it stays on the video the whole time, almost like a watermark. Obviously, then it could be the logo, or it could say something like presented by this company or whatever it might be. Just make sure it's not too standoffish or weird. It's got to blend in seamlessly with what's going on. So maybe think about the colors of the brand versus the colors that you're going on with here. Just make sure it kind of blends seamlessly in. And that's something to consider as well when it comes to aligning your brands. You might want to think about their design and their colors and their, fonts and things like that. Does it align with your brand? Obviously, if you're targeting similar audiences, like maybe I'm targeting males between 20 and 40, some brands kind of align their branding in the same way. So it might be an easy fit. But sometimes if a brand that you're trying to partner with is completely different, maybe it's like a hot pink, I'm not sure that would blend in too well with what's going on here. So maybe that's something to consider as well. Another thing that you can do is you can harness pop-ups. Now, this is something that you edit into the video yourself. It can be a little banner that rises up and then stays on the screen for a couple of seconds and then disappears again after a period of time. I do this with some clients where, if they've got like a social media tag, maybe it's their Instagram or their LinkedIn that they want to promote, or a little pop-up that says subscribe, because that's always good to do periodically throughout the video. But you might want to add one in there that talks about, your brand, and it pops up and it stays on the screen for a little bit. Obviously, the movement then of it coming up will draw their attention and people will see it a little bit clearer. And it can be a little bit more standoffish then, because it's popping up and then it's disappearing again. So think about how you might want to do that. But pop-ups are something you can do. And then maybe you could say, if it's a 10-minute video, you could put a pop-up every 3 minutes or something, or every 2 minutes, and you could kind of barter how much screen time their brand has on your screen, on your platform. Remember, this is your platform. You own it. It's your show. It's all yours. Your viewers are yours. The watch time's yours, all of that. So how much of that watch time are you willing to give away to this brand or sponsor? And use it as currency. Use it to negotiate a deal. Okay, that leads us on to probably the biggest example that you can think of when it comes to sponsorships, and that is just like a straight up advert. This can either go at the beginning of an episode or in the first kind of third. That's where we usually put things. And this can be an advert where you pause proceedings and you jump in to tell people about today's sponsor. So you want to start a podcast, but you don't know how. First of all, like and subscribe and have a look around the channel. There's lots of useful videos to help you on your way to starting, scaling, and thriving in your podcast career. Also, did you know that we run a 3-day event over here in Peterborough called the Podcast Profit System? Come join us in a room of like-minded individuals, meet the progressive team, learn how we do things, and there's a free lunch thrown in as well. All right, let's get back to the video. You've probably seen this in other YouTube videos, so use those videos as a template. You might already have some sort of call to action where you're asking people to subscribe. Think about what you've already got in place. Think about how this will fit in with that. Maybe we move our call to action to promote ourselves to a bit later in the show or a bit earlier, and then think about where this advert is going to go. Remember, we're stopping proceedings entirely. Maybe, if you're super smart, you could sell the beginning at one price, because that's where everyone will see it. Remember, the retention is really important. A lot of people will drop off before they get about a minute into the video. So if you want your sponsor to be seen by the most amount of people, put your advert at the very beginning and charge more for it. Very interesting concept, right? And then later on, you could have another advert further down the line or whatever it might be. But think about that. The timeline and where the advert is has more value depending on where it goes. So that's an interesting concept to think about. Also think about what you're saying in this advert. Obviously, you're stopping proceedings, podcast is paused for a minute, and you're coming in to tell people about the sponsor. Are you going to make it a segment where you literally just say, this episode's sponsored by this company, they're really good, here's a link, blah, 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 back to the episode? Or are you going to try and make it interesting? Are you going to try and bake it into what you are about? So maybe if I was selling a microphone, I might do a segment where I go out and use it, or I show you me talking or setting it up or doing something like that. How hands-on am I with, the service or the product or whatever it might be? Some YouTubers create like a little bit of a skit, so they make like a comedy moment out of it. So they'll do like a little sketch show with the product, or they find an excuse to use it, or they create an interesting segue within the video itself. Or some deals with some sponsors go as far as to say that, this video is all about the product. So they have a product, whether it be, a VPN or a microphone, for example, and you make an entire episode dedicated to that product. So an easy way to think about this is if a microphone company sponsored me, I might do a whole episode where I unbox, review, and then use the microphone in front of you guys, right? And I might have it here as my go-to daily for the future then, and they can sponsor ongoing episodes. Remember, the sponsorship could be as simple as having the logo of the company or the logo of the microphone brand facing outwards to you guys. So think about, how involved are you going to be with this sponsor? Is it just an affiliate link? Is it a call to action advert where you bring the product out and talk about it, then go back to the normal stuff? Or are you making a whole video around your sponsorship? And then what does it look like after that? Is it one and done? Is it a one episode thing? Or are you going to get them to sponsor a whole series of episodes or the channel as a whole? That is something really interesting to consider as well. So we've had clients come to us at Disruptive Media that have come into creating a podcast with a sponsor on board already, and they would have the logo in frame with them the whole time, and maybe a prop that kind of symbolizes the sponsor if you want, and they would sponsor a whole series of podcasts. They'd come to us and they'd say, hey, we've had this sponsorship, we want to make a podcast series. We'd produce it, we'd make sure everything's right, edit all the right things in for them, and then, that would be a batch that is sponsored by the company. Do remember, this is a really important factor in all of this, that these adverts will be baked into your show, especially if it's on YouTube, right? If it's edited into the show, you can remove it afterwards using YouTube's inbuilt editor, which, sorry YouTube, it's a bit slow and a bit janky, but you could make it work. But for all intents and purposes, the advert is baked in forever. You can't take it out, you can't change it. So you might be able to remove it permanently, but you won't be able to swap it out with anything. So this is another major selling point, is that these episodes will exist on YouTube for as long as time allows, right? You're not going to delete them unless something goes wrong, right? So these videos will remain on YouTube, let's say forever, right? It might all go eventually, but let's say forever. And that is then an asset that can go up in views over time. So think about it, you're going to get your normal average expected number of views based on your statistics in the first week or so, but then this asset will sit on YouTube forever and might go up and down in views in the future, depending on trends and things like that. So when you're selling these videos to a sponsor, think of them as assets that will be there forever. People might be seeing it in 10 years' time. So really treat that as a valuable thing that you can use in negotiation when coming up with a deal. Other platforms have something called dynamic adverts. So if you're doing an audio only podcast in your hosting platform like Omni Studio or Buzzsprout, or we're using Megaphone at the moment, you can go in and dynamically switch on or off adverts. So you don't bake it into the episode itself, but it kind of sits above in a different place, and then you can either click it in or click it off and it will change dynamically. So if you're doing an audio only podcast, there is the option to sponsor you for an amount of time, perhaps, to say, you can sponsor all of my episodes that have ever come out for a month, and then I'll switch it off and it will go. So you can make it more of a time-based thing if you want to, using dynamic adverts, but that's not a thing that you can presently do on YouTube. So just bear that in mind. So let's just recap everything we've mentioned so far that you can use to entice your sponsor to give you some more money. So obviously you've got an affiliate link. That's the first thing that you can just put in the description and direct people to get money from sales. You could have their logo appear on screen at the beginning, at the end, all the way through the episode, just their logo or some element of their branding. You could say that the episode is sponsored by this company at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, wherever you like, but you could say that they're sponsoring you. You could then do an advert or a call to action, which could be anything from merely mentioning the product and maybe directing them to the link in the description, to a full hands-on review, unboxing, unpacking, using the product, or whatever it might be. So try and figure out how hands-on you want to be and then incorporate that into your call to action. Or if you want to go the extra mile, create an entire episode based around this sponsorship. Obviously, the most important thing out of all of this is that you're getting a fair deal and you're using your statistics to really big yourself up. This is your baby, this is your platform, and you've worked really hard to get where you are. So those views are sacred, that watch time is sacred, those subscribers are yours. So make sure you're partnering with a brand that aligns with your core values and the brand itself. The worst thing that you want is for people to be calling you out, saying it doesn't match, saying that you're a sellout, things like that. And that usually comes across when you are partnering with a brand that's got nothing to do with you. So just keep that in mind and do what feels right for your brand, your show. There's plenty more fish in the sea when it comes to sponsors. I hope that's been useful and you can go and deploy some of these tactics in your video yourselves. Obviously, if you haven't got a sponsor yet, you can still take these ideas and bake them into videos for yourself, promote your one-to-one course, promote your product, whatever it might be, so you can take those learnings and pair them with a sponsor in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Louie from the Podcasters Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.